Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Healership Path. I'm Rita Hickman, and I'm here with Irma Francis, and we live stream every day, Monday through Friday, starting between 8:15 and 8:30, sometimes a little bit later if we have a few technical difficulties. So we appreciate you joining us, and the Healership Path is all for people who are looking to make a difference in the world, either to heal themselves or heal people that they love, or help or start a practice or a business where they help people out in the world heal. So we're all craving connection and conversation and something that's a little bit higher for us to strive for. And that's what Irma and I hope to do. So I'm a body-mind expert, and I help women feel fantastic. And I'm here with Irma Francis, who's a spiritual coach. And she helps women find their wholeness and empower them. So today's topic is how to be your own authority, and I'm so glad you're here. Thanks for joining us, and stick with us for the next 30 to 40 minutes. All right, how to be your own authority. That was your topic, and what thoughts did you have on it?
Well, I really like this topic because actually it is the main thing that I do with my clients. First of all, I wanted to say that word authority, to me, it really speaks very loudly, because part of the word authority is author. And to me, I feel like when you are the authority of your own life, in a sense, you are the author of your life. You're writing the story of your life. So to me, that's kind of like a double thing going on with author and authority. Part of the work that I do with my clients, the biggest part is to support and encourage them in becoming the authority of their own life. The main focus is something that I call spiritual clarity. Also awakening your innate wisdom. And to me, what that is, and this is really my passion, and this is what I love helping women make contact with, so that they can become an authority in their own life. So what I mean by spiritual clarity and innate wisdom is to have clear sight and clear hearing, to be able to hear your authentic voice, your inner voice, your true voice. And clear sight is to be able to see the bigger picture of things, a bigger perspective, so you don't get so caught up on the little things that may trigger you throughout your life. So to have a bigger perspective, a higher perspective. So those are a combination of things that I relate to being an authority in your own life. How about you, Rita?
Well, I had a question for you first.
Sure.
How do you help women find or develop that clarity? What sort of tools and skills do you use to help them have that authority?
Mm-hmm. Well, one of the main things I do, of course, in the first visit, there's kind of like an attunement, because I can be very, very present. And so I spend a little time just sitting with my client and becoming present, getting into that present moment, because I don't know what your experience has been, but I know anytime I come in contact with somebody who's present, it's just kind of like this automatic calming that happens. So I spend a little time doing that, and then I do an assessment where I do a whole lot of listening, because whether a person is aware of it or not, their true voice comes through. And I see that, I hear that, I pick up on that. I never am an expert. I never come across as an expert of the other person. My service is to empower and encourage women to be the authority in their own lives. And so it's a matter of listening and reflecting back to them what I see and hear coming through them. They have it. They have it already. There's nothing missing. They have it already. So I reflect back. Oh, I heard this. Oh, I see this. Oh, and so it's this back and forth communication, and in that way, I'm helping them make contact with that authentic, true voice inside of them, the authority inside of them, just by being kind of a clear mirror, not reflecting back anything that's broken that needs to be fixed, because women will, whether they're conscious of it or not. You hear that, you see that, and when you reflect it back, it helps them make contact. And that, it's kind of like, if you are starting a fire and there's just these little embers and you're blowing smoke on it, that's what I see my service being to women, is to kind of bring oxygen to that, and to have those little embers that are not fully on fire, not fully passionate. It's bringing oxygen to that, to hopefully when we're done working together, they're on fire for passion in their lives.
Did you have anybody who did that for you? Do you have anybody who were mentors or teachers, or who was able to give that gift to you?
Let me think about that for a second. Not really. Not really. The biggest thing for me that put me in contact with that in myself is it was just a natural awakening at a young age. So I made contact to what I would call the soul, which I consider to be the true self, the authentic self. And in that, I call it awakening. But in that, there was like this download of knowledge, of just a knowing. And I don't know how that happened or why that happened, but it, in that moment, brought spiritual clarity to me. It brought a connection to an innate wisdom. So yeah, and that has been my guide. So I wish I could say that I had someone. As I, became an adult and matured, I have found people to have, yourself being one, to have wonderful dialogue with, and to be mirrors for each other. So I feel really, really blessed by that.
So really, you had almost the universe, and I think that's true for a lot of women, is we are so sensitive, and we end up feeling so out of step with the rest of the world that we can't find, it's so hard for us to find other people who speak the same language, who are going through the same sorts of challenges. And I know many of us, me included, have had to use the universe or a higher power or nature or something that wasn't a person in order to give us that sort of support. And that's why we're creating this tribe, because we know that we're not the only ones out here. I've met hundreds and hundreds of women that I've worked with and helped, and we're all just bursting to go to that next level. Because we feel so trapped by the mainstream dogma or thought processes or expectations. And I know we're feeling like our spirits are just being stifled by all the expectations and all the rules we have to live by. And it's not that anybody's imposed these rules on us. It's that we have realized that if we don't follow these rules, our life is a lot more difficult than it needs to be. And so we try to figure out these things to get along in order to almost navigate this world of people who are numb, who can't feel anything that's going on. So I know I didn't have anybody as a child, but as I've gotten older, I've been able to have these experiences with people of deep, deep connection, and that is what has fulfilled me. In fact, if I don't work with enough people in a week, my energy starts to get drained.
Yeah.
And if I don't have those deep, intimate connections with somebody where you feel like you're, in this dance of creation, you end up feeling empty. And I know that so many women are struggling with that. Have you found that too, Irma?
That women are struggling with, struggling with
finding and getting the intimacy that they really need, either in conversation or with their friends or in relationships or their job.
Mm-hmm. I do find that, and I really find that it can be difficult for women to own their power and to be their own authority because of, and I don't think the rules of our society are necessarily imposed on us, but yet they exist, and it is very patriarchal. I think it would be very, very different if it wasn't patriarchal, but it is. So right from the get-go, we're kind of there's a sense of feeling overpowered by that because it is patriarchal. So I find that a lot, that women are finding it difficult to be the authority in their own lives because of the consequences, the kickback that can come from that.
Yes.
There's a couple things. One thing you said that really rang a bell for me, how you have turned to nature as one of your things. And that's really key for me because nature is unconditional.
Right.
It's a place to go where there is no judgment and you can be exactly as you are.
The plants don't talk back at you.
Yeah.
You can be in a bad mood, you can be in a good mood, and it's just all accepting.
Yeah. And we live in this society that's so competitive, so unfortunately I think has become very, very narcissistic. So that sense of being seen and heard without judgment, a sense of, I see you, I hear you, you're perfect just the way you are. You're perfect in all of your imperfections. How wonderful is that to know someone or meet someone that can reflect that back to you. So that's a couple things I thought of. Another thing is I'm going to correct myself in the question of, did I have people to, I forget exactly how you put your question, to give to me what I give to. Yes, my correction is I did. 3 wonderful, wonderful teachers that I've had for, one of them came 40 years ago.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I met him 40 years ago.
Oh, yeah. It's wonderful to have people like that who stay in your life, too. And you watch the evolution of the relationship.
Yes. So he came to me 40 years ago. So those 3 teachers, mentors, mirrors are my 3 sons.
Oh, how beautiful.
Oh, absolutely. No doubt about
That's
it.
awesome.
No doubt about it.
I bet a lot of women, they almost had to raise the people, or birth the people that could speak that language, that could be on that level. It's just so interesting that it didn't exist. We couldn't find it, and so we had to create it. We had to birth it. If we want a new world, it has to come from us. It's not just going to fall from the sky. And even to the point of having children, so that you can create a better world. Well, they taught me so much and continue to do so, and now I have 2 beautiful grandsons that awesome.
will be my teachers as well.
You've got 2 more.
Yeah. But one of the main things they taught me is from their first breath, from our first meeting, they had within them that uniqueness. I saw it. I saw it. So I saw my job as a mother to not necessarily, of course, to guide and teach, and
Sure.
this is, the way this world works. But my main job as a mom was to see them, hear them, watch. Who are you? Tell me who you are. And even a newborn baby will do that. Oh, yeah. And just, each stage they went through, it became clearer and clearer. They knew who they were. Okay. So my job as a mom was to listen and encourage and support and to bring that uniqueness, that unique soul, to birth that into the world, not to mold them into what my expectations of them were.
Now, here's a question that comes up a lot. We look at people, and I'm told quite often that most people do not have that spark and that ability, that it's only a certain percentage of people. And I'm kind of seen as a Pollyanna sometimes, is because I look at people and I think, well, we're always evolving and we're always growing. And I've had so much kickback for that from people saying, yes, but the majority of people, they don't grow. The majority of people, they're very comfortable where they're at. They continue in their own patterns. And yes, I suppose it's possible, but not really. It's almost like an arrogance that people have in saying, well, I have the ability to change and grow, but very few other people do. And how have you come across people saying that to you?
Well, I've said that myself, that it's a small percentage of people that evolve to what I would call a higher consciousness. What I don't think I've ever said is that not all people are capable. Some people keep going. They don't lose contact with their own soul and their own spirit. They don't lose that contact. So because they don't lose that contact, they keep going. They keep going. It's not that we aren't all capable of it. We are. Of course we are.
So you don't believe that some people are born bad or evil? I mean, evil's a big word, and it's not one that I use, but I've come into contact with it when talking to people. They say, no, some people are just born bad. Some people are just born evil, and there's no hope for them. And I'm almost thinking that in our society, we are compartmentalizing people more and more in that box. We're saying, I'm the good people, and you're the bad people. And the bad people box keeps getting bigger and bigger, and the good people box keeps getting smaller and smaller. And I don't know if you've come across that or had conversations with people about that.
So your question or your thought is, are people born evil? Is that?
Yeah, or born bad, or born tainted. I mean, in many religions, they'd say the original sin.
Well, I think this is just an observation. The human condition, I do think, and we've talked about it on different shows and in personal conversations, that there's a pathology.
Right.
There is and I think that's it's a huge part of the human condition. And what to me evolving is understanding, being conscious that there are, and I don't like this terminology, but I'm going to use it because it works right now, the sins of our fathers. I don't know that we're born with it necessarily. Okay. I think we're born into it. And I think our job in becoming more conscious is to be aware that we are born into a level of existence that has evolved to a certain point, And if you want to participate in the continuation of the evolving of the human condition, you become more and more conscious and aware that, okay, so this is the deal here on Earth. We have evolved to this awareness. Is that where I'm going to stop? Or am I going to take responsibility for becoming more conscious and being aware of being born into a world that holds the sins of our fathers? I don't like that terminology, but that holds the stories that kind of have been passed forward and forward and forward. Are we going to believe those stories, or are we going to say, I think we can be better than this?
I've been watching a lot of documentaries on these great thinkers of the modern world and the ancient world. And in the 1900s, there was a real shift that came about of, the belief before is that religion was necessary in order to give people a moral compass, in order to give them rules to live by, because they were children who did not have the ability to make their own decisions, and they needed to be cared for in some way. And that shift happened where people started to say, is there a God? Are we responsible for ourselves? What direction does this go? And I think in the patriarchal aspect of it, in the male aspect of it, they've looked at it and said, well, of course we're our own authority. But then looked at women or looked at minorities or looked at other groups and said, but they are still children. It's that spiritual arrogance again that says, not that all people have the ability to do this, but only certain people have the ability to evolve and think and grow. And I know women are still battling a lot of that, of being treated as not being allowed to behave as women and being respected as women. They feel that they have to behave as men in order to navigate the world and to, get some of the things that they want, success for themselves, to make an impact, but they're not allowed to be women and get the same level of respect. That nurturing and that caring and the synergy and giving back and forth. And I see it in a lot of women around me that as time goes by and they've had to work so hard to try to keep their own authority. And but they also get weighed down, and almost conditioned, as in, well, this is the way that I have to behave if I'm going to achieve anything, if I'm going to be, because otherwise being nurturing and being caring and being kind won't get me anywhere in this world. And so I need to be angry and express it, and I need to close doors, and I need to, really develop that masculine energy, which feels foreign to us. On the other side, it does make us more whole, but we're not allowed to really express ourselves and be successful and respected in this world in the way that's natural to us. And I see so many women who've gotten tired of having to conform to a world that says, if you want to be respected, you need to behave in a tough, aggressive, sort of manner. And because of the culture that we live in, because it's a very patriarchal, masculine-based society, and women are starting to say, no, enough.
Yeah, definitely. Gosh, I certainly have had that experience myself, and of course know lots and lots of women who've gone through and go through exactly what you're just talking about. I do definitely think there's a way to not severely draw a line in the sand, but not to look for respect or try and change something out there to get respect. but to respect yourself and be very solid in that. And when that happens, even though things are set up in a certain way, and it is still very patriarchal, our society, once you respect yourself, I don't think you necessarily have to be aggressive. And there might be a misinterpretation of what being nice and kind is. I can be nice, and I can be kind, but I'm not going to be stupid in the sense of letting somebody walk over me. And I'm also not going to become aggressive. Respecting myself would not, and I'm not saying I'm perfect at this, because I'm not. I'm learning all the time. But if I'm triggered and I have a reaction and become aggressive, I've given my power away. So I think there's a way to speak very clearly and very firmly in an assertive way. And assertiveness, most of the time, you're going to be respected. One way or another, you will find a way through assertion, through assertiveness, to be respected, because you're respecting yourself and you're respecting other people. That's what being assertive is.
I work with a lot of women who come from trauma in their past, and because of that trauma, they haven't wanted to be the person that is more assertive or more aggressive, because they say, why is this a problem? This is more a first world problem than a third world problem. They have this wider perspective of life as to pain or suffering, and how it affects you. And so many women who come from that end up extremely generous with other people and not as generous with themselves, because they expect, if I give generosity, then generosity will come back to me. And then they end up stuck or lost because it doesn't come back to them. Because they're giving, expecting, well, I give to you and then you give to me, and this is how this flow is supposed to work. But then they walk out into the world and they realize, wait, I'm surrounded by people that aren't giving back.
Oh, such a good point. Oh boy, that's a good point.
So I mean, so many women, they want to be themselves, of having this higher belief of, if I give to you, you'll give to me, and they're not finding it. They're not finding that reciprocity. You know, that's coming back to fill their well, and then they end up tired, very tired of feeling like they know there's a better way to do relationship and to do life. But the people that they're in relationship with in their life don't agree with them. And they feel like the options available of people that they can have those sorts of back and forth relationships are very small. You know? I know this is a harsh way to put it, and I apologize. Sometimes things are a little hard to hear and hard to experience, but what I said a minute ago, I can be nice and kind, but I'm not going to be stupid. And if in my not being stupid, recognizing the society I live in, recognizing that I have to choose wisely who I let into my inner circle, for one thing, and what I expose myself to. If I'm being mistreated, not listened to, not respected, I'm not going to stick around. I mean, you know what I mean? I'm not going to adjust myself to become smaller, quieter, nicer, sweeter, all of these things to make other people
comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
I'm never out to overpower anybody else,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm also not going to let them overpower me.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Mm-hmm.
especially as adults,
Mm-hmm.
children, that's a whole other ballgame. But as adults, we all need to stand in our power.
Mm-hmm.
And if somebody's trying to overpower you,
Mm-hmm.
you gotta speak up. And if that doesn't work, walk away.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
I found for me that I'm realizing more and more. When people would try to overpower me, I took it very personally, and I still do. I still struggle with that because my first sense is why are they hurting? Why are they behaving in this way? And I always think it's because they're hurting in some way. They're wounded. And one of the shifts that's happened is I realize they may be wounded, but they also know exactly what they're doing. They know they're using this anger as a power play, as a way to get something that they want. Mm-hmm. And they haven't had enough experiences of being on the other end of it, or they were learned that this is an acceptable way to be.
Yeah, right.
But I know a lot of women who come from a hard past, they were the victims of those sorts of things as children, of having someone's anger overpowering them, and they know what it feels like.
So they don't want to do
so they don't want to do it to anybody else. And one of the lessons I teach them is you have to stop looking at the world as if they're filled with traumatized little girls, because those things didn't happen to a lot of people. They weren't on that receiving end of such anger and harshness and rage and fear. They weren't on the other end of that. So they don't have the same really negative association with it, like terror associated with it. They don't have that. And so they're comfortable expressing those sorts of things because they don't have the experiences, or they don't have enough empathy to realize the effect of what they're doing. Mm-hmm. And so I think a lot of people are unconscious as to how their anger and negativity are affecting people. And the women especially who've come from a space where that happened to them a lot. Mm-hmm. They were sensitive, they felt everything, they felt responsible for everybody. It's very hard to then put themselves in the role, to switch roles and be like, I want to be the person that does this to somebody else. And they have a hard time. They have a hard time being the person that they never wanted to be.
I hear you, and I understand that. I certainly understand that. Yeah.
It takes a real mind shift to realize that those of us who are sensitive or healers have probably gone through something in our life that made an impact on us, and that many people will have those things, but they might not have had them yet. So they haven't had that life experience where that empathy and that compassion has really been required to be right at the forefront, to be right there. And so only until they're in the position where they really understand what it's like to be on the other side of that, to have that sensitivity and feel that deeply, then they really won't get it. And so we can't relate to them as if they were traumatized little girls. We have to relate to them as if they're people who don't really understand the effects of their actions. They know what they're doing, but they can't feel what they're doing. Mm-hmm. And so to them it's acceptable.
Wow, those are some really, really good points. And I think I'd like to hear your thoughts on this. That sensitivity, most likely, a lot of people in the healing fields have that, and for probably a lot of them the reasons that you were just talking about, and that's great because that makes them great healers, helpers. As you were saying that, I was thinking of my experience with, is it equine? Is that how you say it? Equine therapy?
Oh, yeah.
Therapy with horses?
Yeah.
The reason horses are used for that and are so great is because they are an animal that is preyed upon.
Right.
So they're everything's heightened.
Yes.
And so their sensitivities, that's the healers probably of our world.
That's why
like
they relate
horses.
so well to horses. So many women who are sensitive, they love to work with horses because finally they feel like they found a creature, a being that truly understands, you know, that they can relate to and talk the same language to. We have just a few minutes left.
Oh, that went by fast.
It always does go by very, very fast. Were there any points you wanted to make or things you wanted to say before we wrapped up, Irma?
Well, I think this is something that we're going to be covering in the Healership Path.
Right.
Is talking more about how do we become the authority in our lives? How do we own our power? How do we create the lives that are true to who we are and living a life based on respect for ourselves?
Right. Yeah. Respect for ourselves and enough respect to communicate in a way that is clear, but also respectful of the other person. You know, who's receiving it.
Yes.
You know, because that's the dilemma, the respect going back and forth. And when we have a wound or a pain come up, or if we've got a chemical imbalance or if we're tired, it's very hard to remember to respect the other person that we're talking to because we feel so overwhelmed by how we feel, by decades long of being disrespected, you know, and having to fight for ourselves. And finally, we're going to stand up for this. Yeah. And it's very difficult, especially at the beginning of that journey, to yes, respect yourself and respect the person that you're talking to, and finding some balance that works so that you don't push away everything that you want, that you're clear, but you still draw in those relationships, that you don't burn the bridges and cut people off, that you're clear, but in a compassionate way.
Sure, yes.
So that when the other person is ready to communicate, you can still grow and have this synergy. You know, we look at the world as if it's an all or nothing. You know, here's the line and now I'm done and this is finished and I'm moving on and I'm not going to do this. Instead of this natural evolution and growth and synergy that we can't get, you know, it's just how life works. Yeah. So I'm excited about the things we'll be covering in the future.
Me too.
So if you've got any questions, please leave them. We'll answer them in the next video. We'll answer them in the email. And we're going to see you Monday morning between 8:15 and 8:30. And please go to inspiremassage.com and sign up for our email list, because we all need to come together and really start working together to make the world the peaceful place that we've always wanted. So yes. I hope you have a great weekend. I hope you have a great day. And I'm looking forward to seeing you on Monday.